It's time to play.
Curse of Chucky is the latest installment in the Chucky series, and it is written and directed once again by Don Mancini, only this time it's much better and less homoerotic, and also, it's so damn good. The movie is written and directed by Don Mancini and stars Fiona Dorff, who actually is the real-life daughter of Brad Dourif, who plays Chucky. And also the movie stars Danielle Basutti, who you may know her from Insidious Chapter 2 as the mom, the evil, the ghostly figure mom. She was the villain in Insidious Chapter 2. You also, Maitland McConnell, I don't really know her work that well, but I know she's really good in this movie. Also stars Summer H. Howell, who's good in this movie as a little kid that Chucky wants to possess. And Brennan Elliott, who plays the dad of the little girl, who's also the wife of Danielle Basutti. And, of course, how can we forget Brad Dourif, who once again not only does the voice of Chucky, but he plays him in flashbacks in this movie. This is the first time since, I believe, the first Child's Play movie to where we see Brad Dourif reprise his role as Chucky in live action and in voice. The movie itself was originally meant to be a remake of the Child's Play series, because after seeing Chucky, people writ and bitch and complained saying, we want a real serious Chucky movie again, like the original series. Give us that, give us that. And so every time Don Mancini would be at a convention or something, people would go up to him and say, hey, Chucky, come on, let's do another Chucky movie. We want a good Chucky movie again. Want a good Chucky movie again. And so Don Mancini said, you know what? He finally, around like 2009 or so, was like, look, we're going to make one. And so he got there, he wrote a good remake and was going to make it and everything. And then he gave it to Universal. Universal agreed to make it. But then, as they were in production, getting pre-production, they got hit with a cease and desist because MGM owned the rights to the first Child's Play movie, so you can't really remake the first Child's Play movie because MGM owns the rights to that movie. Because originally, when they made Child's Play, they sold the rights to Child's Play after the first movie, and so they couldn't make Child's Play. And so, basically, they can only make the first movie over again. They can't really make sequel to Child's Play, as far as I know, from the lawsuit. So as for Universal, they can make many sequels they want to Chucky. They just can never remake Chucky. And so they were like, and so then they were like, oh, yes, we can. And then they had to go to court over it and everything. And the judge finally ruled in their favor saying, listen, he says, you own the rights. You own the rights. He goes, Universal can make as many sequels, but only MGM can remake the movie unless they come together and make a deal. And so MGM was willing to make come together, and so before talks could even start, MGM filed for bankruptcy, Chapter 11 bankruptcy. So of course, that happened, and so of course, and then of course, MGM filed for bankruptcy, and they had to this was around 2009 or so, 10. MGM filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and then of course, they got bailed out eventually in 2011. They got bailed out, and then of course now they're back on top again, and they just got bought by Amazon. So, but yeah, MGM in 2009 filed for bankruptcy, and so every project like James Bond, Jeepers Creepers, and a bunch of other projects like Red Dawn remake that they shot was all on the back burner, as well as Cabin in the Woods. They all got put in the back burner because MGM went bankrupt. And so even the Child's Play remake got put on hold because they're like, we can't make it without them. So, and they're going for bankruptcy right now. So what do we do? So Don Mancini was like, legally could we make a reboot but not a remake? And so his idea was, what if we acknowledge that these movies have happened but don't really acknowledge them? And so because he wanted to make another one, he was like, what if we do a Chucky reboot? Okay, we do one that's serious about and they're like, what if we put the character in a wheelchair? And he starts pitching these ideas okay, we can call it Chucky, and we'll do it like that. And and as the idea kept progressing, revenging, and he just kept changing ideas, and he's like, it's not really a remake, it's more or less a sequel. And so that kept toying to where he said, it's going to be serious and dark, and so that kind of became the idea he was making. And eventually it became Curse of Chucky, but first he went from calling it Chucky to call it Revenge of Chucky. And then that was the working title and everything. And he was like, okay. And he gave it to Universal. But Universal, because it was so cheap to make, he's like, okay, we can make this for this much money. Universal's like, well, we're not really, we're more going to spend bigger money. We just made the Fast and the Furious movie. you know, and everything. And he says, we're not really into like funding this much low of a budget. He says, but they were at the time doing direct-to-video sequels to movies like The Scorpion King and all that. And so they were like, look, we have a direct-to-video division. If you want to give it to them, if they can make that, then go ahead and go make it. And so that's what they did. They went there and they said, all right, now it's called Curse of Chucky. And they're like, you just got to call it. They changed it from Revenge to Curse. Curse of Chucky. And then they're like, all right. And then they went into production and then they said, you know, like, all right, we're going to Canada. We're going to shoot this. And they shot it cheaply because they were trying to keep the budget down so that way they can focus. But then again, they did rely back. You know, they did rely on special effects more than practical effects. Like with the doll, some of the stuff they did was practical. But then, like, you know, as for, like, you know, there are some scenes where the doll walks down as CGI. Because they said they wanted to, like, you know, puppeteering and stuff would take more time and resources. So they said, we'll just do CGI. And so that's what they did. And so some scenes, he does not look good. Like, there's a scene where Chucky walks downstairs, and that's CGI. Because they're like, look, we're on a budget and a limit, you know, and that's what we could do, you know. And so that's what they did. They handed it to, like, a third-party department that did the CGI, which was kind of like, they did this for, like, Scorpion King as well and everything. And they're like, they did the CGI and special effects for the movie. Anyways, the movie really was shot cheaply, and it made its budget back 3 times over because, like, the movie came out and it did really well on home video because they released a direct-to-video and it skyrocketed, and Universal was really happy. It made more money than any of their direct-to-video movies at the time. It was the highest-grossing home video sales market of that year, and they were so impressed by it that the studio was like, "Look, do you want to go and make Scorpion King? Not Scorpion King." When it happens, something like, hey, you want to go make Scorpion King? I was like, well, man, I don't know nothing about it. I mean, yeah, just give me a scrap, yeah, come on. And Dom is like, I'm making the Scorpion King. Like, you know. But no, what happened is they offered him like, hey, you want to do another Chucky movie? And he goes, yeah, but then it kind of stalled production because Don Mancini became a writer on Hannibal. And so he joined the writing team of Hannibal, and so that's kind of what stalled the production because he's like, look, I really want to make this show with Brian Fuller. He goes, look. And so then he stayed, and so that's what kept, like, you know, he kept telling people, look, we're going to do Chucky one day, but right now I'm doing Hannibal. And then once Hannibal got canceled, which the show is really good. If you've never seen the show, it's really meta. Like, so, like, it doesn't really, like, so if you watch the show Hannibal, don't expect what you see in Silence of the Lambs. It's more metaphoric of, like, and it's really eerie. Like, it's not like, it deals with more a psychological horror than it does with physical horror. So if you watch it like that, like, it's more like poetic horror, you know, art housey horror, rather than, you know, think Candyman. It's more art housey horror than it is slasher horror, you know, while the movie's more slasher horror. Just think of it that way. And so, in which Don Mancini did, of course, come back afterwards and make Cult of Chucky, in which, if you watch that movie, you could tell that he brought his Hannibal stuff in there, because there were some deaths that are art house, you know, which... I will say this movie does have a strong cast. In fact, the little girl who plays the little girl, you know, the little girl who plays the little girl, Summer H. Howell, who plays the kid, she was so terrified of Chucky that the doll, the scene where, like, you know, the doll with the scars on his face, is actually they had to CGI the doll scars because she was so terrified to actually see his face, and so they had to use the plain doll without the scars. And what the reason is, they said they made Chucky. They wanted to make Chucky look different from the other movies, but at the same time they wanted to resemble. So that's kind of like how they do the Michael Myers mask. They kept changing them up every movie. That's how what they do with Chucky. Every movie they change his face up, and so which they kind of resemble the similar, but then it kind of changed his face up, and which they say that Don Mancini said in the commentary, if you peel the skin off his face, like, they didn't peel all the skin off. Like, there's still, like, he still looks like he does from Bride of Chucky. He just uses wax over his face, and she didn't get all of them. And so the movie is really unique in a way that it kind of shows you, like, his backstory before he became, like, it kind of leads right into Child's Play. Even though in the original Child's Play, that's not, like, what really happened. Like, you know, he didn't just run away. Like, what happened in the original movie was, in, you know, deleted scenes that was cut from the movie, that he was chasing after, like, he was going up to Mike, you know, and then Mike was in a dress and pulls the dress off. He's like, police, freeze, and then he runs away and that, and, you know, you can see at the beginning of the movie, if you watch the beginning of the movie, you can see him start throwing off, like, he throws the dress down, you can throw the scarf away, and everything. Which I will say, you know, I would say, well, Don Mancini didn't write the original, but he did. He co-wrote the original movie, which I could argue there was 3 other writers on the movie, so it's like that could not have been his idea. And so he was like, I didn't like that idea, and plus we never actually seen it. The general audience has never seen that scenes, only as hardcore fans. So he's like, you know what? They ain't ever gonna know. I'll just change it and say, look, Chucky loved another woman. He didn't love Tiffany. He loved another woman, and that's the reason why. You know, it's that you go back to Bride of Chucky. It makes more sense why he doesn't love Tiffany, because he's like, his heart never belonged to Tiffany. His heart belonged to her, that woman. And so that's what kind of hurts him more, is that woman did not love him back. So, of course, you know, and you kind of see Chucky's not just a sadistic bastard that he is that in all the movies. He is, but he's also, he had a heart. Like, you know, he's like, oh, okay. Which, I like the element that it kind of humanizes him a little bit, even though, you know, we all know he's an evil bastard. He also kills a lot of people, too. So he's, you know, he does kill people. And, you know, the kills in this movie are pretty solid, too. I will say the kills are solid pretty, too. And Brad Dourif, by the way, he said they had to put heavy makeup, a wig on him, heavy makeup, and perfect lighting so he could look young again. Because he, like, what you could still tell, it's old guy makeup. It's still, I mean, what are you going to do, right? I really like Curse of Chucky. I think it's a great movie. Also, in the post-credit scene, Brad Dourif was actually on set for the Andy cameo at the end. Alex Vincent, who cameos at the end. If you've never seen the movie, if you just watch the movie, you never go to the credits. There's 2 post-credit scenes. One where Tiffany's FedExing Chucky to Andy, she FedExed him to Andy. She FedExed him to Andy, and then of course in the post-credit scene you get Andy get it, and then you see him on the phone, and he's like, "Hey, Mom, how's Mike?" You know, call back to the first Child's Play. And you see, like, his academy, like, you know, you see, like, you know, his academy thing. You see, and Chucky takes that knife and carves through the box, and he gets up and he looks over at that picture, and then he sees a shotgun at his face. He's like, Ch-ch. He goes, I love that scene when he goes, like, he was not expecting that. Like, his face lights up, like, you know, he was not expecting that. And he goes, play with this. And he's like, Andy, wait! And he blows his face off. And then you see in the next movie, he actually blew his face off. You know, like Andy really is not that stupid. So he's like, you know, you don't think I'm going to get a random package and not think it's you? I mean, come on, you've tried to kill. Which I love, and there's dialogue early in the movie where he says, so did you kill, the girl's in the wheelchair is like, so did you kill Andy Barkley? He goes, worse, I killed his child. And then she mocks him for it, like he's the one that got away, the one. And so angrily, it made me laugh because it's like, so I don't know if this was always planned for him to go to Andy's, but I always like to think that he went like he was just pissed off at what she said. So he's like, you know what? I'm going to Andy's. I'm going to murder him. Then I'm going back there. He said, then I'm going to the asylum to kill you. That's what I always like to think that Chucky did that. He's like, you know what? I'm going to go kill Andy. I'm going to do it. You know, he's like, no, Tiffany, mail me. I'm going to kill Andy. And then it kind of backfired on him, which, you know, you find out in the next film that wasn't just him, it was, you know, other Chuckies. But I kind of like that, you know, that Chucky, you know, kind of got angry about that. You know, he's like the one victim that got away and everything. So I thought that was really funny, you know. That Chucky is a funny guy. He really is. Like, he's not... You know, he can roast himself and roast others. Like, you know, like there's a joke I forgot to mention in Bride of Chucky where, like, the girl says, that's the ugliest doll I've ever seen. And then he does the little girl voice where he's like, hi, I'm Chucky, and I wouldn't talk if I were you. just like that made me die laughing in that movie. Just like Chucky, he's really angry, a little angry little fucker, isn't he? Just an angry person. Like, just angry and bitter. But, I mean, it's really fun. I mean, this movie is really fun to watch, and it has some interesting kills. Like, there's some really one with, like, you know, there's a really cool scene with, like, you know, a kill with rat poison. But it's not really a kill. Like, you see somebody get sick from rat poison, but then there's a cool kill with a cool, like, decapitation kill, and then there's a cool, you know, kill with, like, getting stabbed in the... I mean, the stab in the eye kills might not be great, but electrocution kill. It's mostly CG kills, but they're still really good, I think, and... The movie's a fun time. Is it the best Chucky movie? Probably not. But I really enjoy it. It kind of brought the horror element back and got away from the campiness of Chucky. And a lot of people have said that, you know, this is one of the better ones. You know, and I will say this. It's much better, I think, than Cult. But I do think it's... To me, is it better than the first three Child's Play? Probably not, but I mean, I really enjoy this movie. Like, I've seen this movie more times than you can possibly imagine. I love this movie. I really think it's a fun movie, and I like the backstory behind Chucky and everything, and I like the Andy cameo at the end. I like Tiffany's cameo at the end. It's just such a great time, and it really makes you feel nostalgic and acknowledges all the other movies that come before. And if I had to give this movie a movie, I would give it a solid B+.